Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Soul Land 2 Peerless Tang Men based on novel. So let's start. This little fellow wasn't picky with his food. He was eating very happily, and naturally stopped crying because he had something to eat. But his large black eyes were staring at Huo Yuhao from the beginning to the end. Reality proved that this 1-year-old child wasn't just able to eat food for grown men, he could even walk. Even though he didn't walk very stably, the little child, who should be Xu Yunhan, began to walk by himself when Huo Yuhao let him go. Furthermore, he wasn't uncomfortable with strangers, and he stopped crying once he was full. He was all smiles, and the way he smiled made all the title Doluo react with kind and amiable expressions. What a cute little baby. The little child returned in front of Huo Yuhao after circling around, and seemed to stare at him very seriously before he exclaimed babyishly, "Daddy." Huo Yuhao almost jumped to his feet in surprise. This child wasn't the only person to call him Daddy. The Snow Lady had called him that before. But Huo Yuhao realized to his surprise that he was only awkward and embarrassed when the Snow Lady called him that, but when this little fellow called him that, he felt shaken. There seemed to be some kind of formless fate in the nether that tied them together when the little boy uttered that word. Huo Yuhao possessed the eye of destiny, and he was extremely sensitive to it. He seemed to feel like his destiny was connected to this little fellow when the child called to him. He made his decision in that moment. Huo Yuhao took the baby back into his arms as he said teasingly, "What's your name?" "Yunhan." The baby replied very cleanly. Huo Yuhao realized from interacting with the baby that Xu Yunhan was already very good with words, even if he could only say a few. The baby had to be very familiar with those words, otherwise he wouldn't be able to speak them. Huo Yuhao subconsciously kissed the baby on his tender little cheeks. Xu Yunhan's chubby cheeks were soft and bouncy, and his smooth and tender skin was just like his mother's. He. The little child seemed to feel ticklish as he withdrew his neck and laughed. Huo Yuhao laughed as well. This kid was just too cute. Tang Wutong came over and began to tease little Yunhan with Huo Yuhao. She giggled and said, "Seems like you're quite good with kids. Did you teach yourself?" Huo Yuhao chuckled. "You might as well say that I'm naturally talented. I will be an excellent father when we have kids in the future." Tang Wutong blushed, but she didn't avoid his gentle gaze. Her eyes were brimming with happiness. A smiling face suddenly cut in between them in this moment, and two large eyes stared at Tang Wutong seriously. "Daddy, mine." Tang Wutong couldn't help but laugh. "Your daddy isn't here, his." She suddenly paused when she said those words, and dejection appeared in her eyes as she glanced at Huo Yuhao. Huo Yuhao's smile disappeared at the same time, and he gently caressed Xu Yunhan's head. Some more time passed as the little fellow fell asleep, because he was full and tired from playing, and everyone took off once more. The title Doluo didn't say anything, but anybody would realize upon closer inspection that the atmosphere between everyone was conspicuously more tense. They were flying far too quickly, and the Sun Moon Empire's territory was so wide. Those who were pursuing them couldn't catch up, because there was no way they could lock onto their positions. Huo Yuhao relied on his formidable spiritual detection, as he successfully took everyone across the border's defenses once more. They returned to the Ming-Do mountain range, and directly descended towards the mountain range's main peak. The title Doluo's expressions were a lot more relaxed when they returned. They were finally back, and even though their mission wasn't perfect, they had accomplished at least half of it. They had heavily injured the Sun Moon Empire's emperor, Xu Qianran, and managed to capture the Sun Moon Empire's crown prince, Xu Yunhan. But at the same time, the body Doluo remained in the Sun Moon Empire forever, and would never return. The White Tiger Duke welcomed them personally. He stared at everyone's solemn expressions, and his eyes dimmed when he didn't see Dubuzi. The White Tiger Duke turned to Huo Yuhao when they arrived inside the commander's tent. "Tell me what happened, Yuhao." Huo Yuhao nodded. He was still carrying Xu Yunhan in his arms, and the little fellow was sleeping very soundly. He immediately recounted everything that he had seen on this mission in detail, except he didn't tell the White Tiger Duke about the body Doluo handing him the secrets of the body. The White Tiger Duke shut his eyes painfully after listening to his report. After a few moments, he said, the body Doluo realized his wish. He had already told me that before everyone departed. He couldn't recover from his old injuries, and he wanted to give his full strength to assassinate Xu Qianran on this mission. Back then, I already felt like something was wrong. And it seems like he had planned this a long time ago. Everyone lowered their heads gloomily, especially those formidable individuals from the body sect. The body Doluo's death undoubtedly meant the body sect's fall from glory. In addition to the large masses of their elites who had perished in the war, the body sect probably wouldn't regain their strength even after a few hundred years. The White Tiger Duke finally trained his eyes on Xu Yunhan, who was still in Huo Yuhao's arms. A complicated look appeared in his eyes. Capturing the crown prince wasn't his idea. He had been heroic and valiant his entire life, but now he was using a child to threaten the Sun Moon Empire. He wasn't willing at all, from the bottom of his heart. But the Sun Moon Empire was far too powerful, and if they didn't have a plan to counter them, the White Tiger Duke wasn't confident at all of defending his empire's territory when the Sun Moon Empire's enormous empire descended upon them like a thunderstorm. Huo Yuhao turned to the White Tiger Duke with a calm look on his face. What shall we do with the child, Duke? What are you planning to do with him? The word he used was you, not us. Hesitation appeared in the White Tiger Duke's eyes as he said subconsciously, what suggestions do you have, Yuhao? Huo Yuhao said without hesitation, war is an affair for men. It has nothing to do with children. No matter who he is, he's still a child. We are honorable men, so how can we use an infant to threaten our enemies? That's not honorable at all. Furthermore, with the Sun Moon Empire's emperor's personality, kidnapping the crown prince will lose its meaning, since he isn't dead. He can have one crown prince, so why can't he bear another? Huo Yuhao's words were very precise. If the body Doluo, Dubuzi had assassinated Xu Qianran successfully, then the Doluo continent's 3 native empires wouldn't have to do anything if they captured the crown prince. The Sun Moon Empire would naturally descend into chaos, because everyone would be fighting for control of the throne. The Sun Moon Empire wouldn't have a leader, while the ruler had no heir. Who wouldn't want to rule over such a powerful empire? But Xu Qianran was still alive, so the Sun Moon Empire couldn't truly be that chaotic. Kidnapping the crown prince under such circumstances perhaps wouldn't have its desired effect, unless Xu Qianran placed a lot of importance on that son of his, and was willing to pay a tremendous price for him. Otherwise, if he really did abandon the crown prince, then everything that everyone did would become meaningless. What you're saying is that capturing the crown prince is useless. The heavenly son Doluo's voice was suddenly a little higher than before. They went through so much to kidnap the crown prince, and even though Huo Yuhao's words sounded virtuous, he had still touched a nerve. That was especially so for the other titled Doluo, who were with the heavenly son Doluo in capturing the crown prince. Everyone showed displeased expressions. Huo Yuhao shook his head and said, I didn't mean to offend. But if I had known that our mission's target was a child, nothing would have convinced me to participate. The heavenly son Doluo stared at him coldly and said, Child. This child's father is the one who commanded the Sun Moon Empire's army to sweep over the Heavenly Soul Empire, and if that didn't happen, why would the body Doluo sacrifice himself? His sacrifice created the opportunity for us to kidnap the crown prince. You're so young, but your tongue is sharp, and yet you think you stand on the moral high ground. Do you think that's enough to save your country? So what if we do despicable things for our country? Huo Yuhao answered plainly, the reason why the body Doluo chose to attack the sacrificial platform, instead of personally kidnapping this child, was probably because he felt it was beneath his dignity. Otherwise, on the day of the ceremony, all of the Sun Moon Empire's high-level officials would be watching the sacrificial platform. Even without a diversion, what do you think the body Doluo's chances would have been if he had snuck into the royal palace to kidnap this child, with his strength? Aren't you guys aware? Everyone's faces changed once more as they heard his words. The title Doluo's expressions became even blacker than before. The heavenly son Doluo turned to the White Tiger Duke and said, Duke, Huo Yuhao did contribute a lot to this operation, and he was a great help to us. Now that the mission has been completed, he can return to Shrek Academy. We should be the ones discussing what comes next. He's a junior, and he doesn't have to continue participating. The White Tiger Duke nodded and turned to Huo Yuhao. Yuhao, the Heavenly Sun Doluo is right. You have already helped us a lot on this mission. You should go back and rest, and return to the academy as quickly as possible. We'll deal with the rest. How could he not agree with what Huo Yuhao said deep in his heart? But their enemy was near, and he could only choose to protect Huo Yuhao as much as possible with so many titled Doluo in front of them. The White Tiger Duke walked in front of Huo Yuhao and took Xu Yunhan from him as he spoke. Huo Yuhao's expression was a little blank. He fixed his eyes on the White Tiger Duke, and when the Duke took the baby, Huo Yuhao suddenly asked, "Duke, sir, if your son was the one who was kidnapped and your enemies wanted you to pay a price, would you do it?" The White Tiger Duke was momentarily stunned. He suddenly felt that Huo Yuhao's gaze was a little blinding, but he still answered without hesitation, "If my enemy's price was personal, then I would give my own life to save my child. But if my enemy's price was for me to betray my country, then I would avenge my son." Huo Yuhao suddenly laughed out loud and said, "Good, good, you will avenge your son. You live up to your name as a loyal and righteous duke." Ha ha, ha 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 ha. Huo Yuhao pulled Tang Wutong along as he laughed before he turned and left. As he walked off, a titled Doluo from the Douling Empire couldn't help but comment, "This kid is too arrogant. Although he's capable, it's still." "Shut up." The Heavenly Sun Doluo turned grim. "He's not just capable. When we were his age, we were nothing yet. His future is unlimited. In addition, are we really comfortable with using a kid to threaten our enemy?" The White Tiger Duke sighed and said, "Heavenly Sun, what suggestions do you have? What should we do next?" The Heavenly Sun Doluo pondered for a moment before replying, "We should send a letter to the Sun Moon Empire under the name of our three empires, and ask them to return the territories that they have taken from the Heavenly Soul Empire. At the same time, there should also be a contract that prohibits any war from being started within the next 100 years. We'll then return the Crown Prince to him." After hearing his words, the White Tiger Duke was stunned and smiled bitterly. "Elder Heavenly Sun, those conditions are a little too..." The Heavenly Sun Doluo said, "There's always a price to pay. If we don't set higher demands, how will we have the room to negotiate?" The White Tiger Duke was a little conflicted right now. As he looked at the little fellow in his arms, he was at a loss as to what to do. He was someone with children, and not just one child. Even though he had killed many people in his life before, he still couldn't help but sigh in his heart when he saw a child in his arms, in addition to what Huo Yuhao had said earlier. Huo Yuhao appeared much calmer after he returned to his room. He didn't utter a word and only sat on his bed. Tang Wutong accompanied him and sat beside him. She grabbed his hand and placed it between her hands. After this, she lowered her head and said, "Yuhao, go and do what you want to do. No matter what your decision is, I'll always be on your side. Even if..." As she spoke until here, she lifted her head to look at him. Huo Yuhao was also gazing at her by now. As their gazes met, the look in Tang Wutong's eyes became sharper. "Even if you make the entire world your enemy..." Huo Yuhao's entire body shook, and he pulled her into his embrace. His voice was trembling, "All right, even if I make the entire world my enemy." In his mind, both little Yunhan and the White Tiger Duke's face kept on appearing. "Juzi, don't worry. I'll definitely return your son to you. The war should never involve harming a little kid. In the future, we'll be enemies and I'll do my best to resist the Sun Moon Empire on the battlefield. However, I won't let your kid come to any harm now. He's only a kid. In my heart, he isn't just some crown prince." The sky slowly turned dark. It was extremely dark on the mountains at night. Two figures silently appeared at the peak of the mountain, peering into the distance amidst the thick night fog. Tang Wutong was beside Huo Yuhao, helping to neaten his shirt. Huo Yuhao's expression was very calm, but he clearly knew that this path that he had chosen would most likely change his future. However, he was very certain about his decision. Tang Wutong gently leaned on him and revealed a satisfied look on her face. "Yuhao, do you know what I'm thinking of?" Tang Wutong asked softly. "What?" Huo Yuhao asked. There was a strong nostalgic look in Tang Wutong's eyes. "Initially, you were still so small and weak when we first came to Shrek Academy. However, you defeated me using your persistence. Then, you left a deep impression in my mind. After that, we joined the freshman test and fought together, turning the impossible possible. We emerged as the eventual champions. Now, we are going to fight together again. In fact, it seems like it's been a long time, hasn't it?" Yes. They hadn't fought together in their peak condition in a long time. Ever since Huo Yuhao had been critically injured from retrieving the yearning heartbroken grass, and had to sit in a wheelchair. Huo Yuhao sighed a little and said, "I hope we won't need to fight." As they finished speaking, they had already disappeared into the night. Ever since Huo Yuhao, the Heavenly Sun Doluo and the rest returned, there was another tent beside the White Tiger Duke's tent. 2 nannies were specially deployed to take care of Shu Yunhan. Shu Yunhan had been crying uncontrollably ever since he woke up and discovered that Huo Yuhao wasn't around. After a while, he couldn't stand the hunger and fell asleep after eating something. His adaptability was actually very great. He was barely a year old and didn't recognize anyone. The curtains moved slightly, and 2 figures arrived outside the tent. It was pitch black inside the tent right now. Little Yunhan was sleeping very soundly in his cot. The 2 nannies were sleeping at his side, ready to attend to the little fellow if there was a need to. Huo Yuhao revealed a gentle smile on his face, but he didn't make a sound. He walked towards the cot. At this moment, a long sigh could be heard outside the tent. "Yuhao, why do you have to do this?" A low-pitched but firm voice echoed. Huo Yuhao acted like he didn't hear the voice and continued to walk towards the cot. He took little Yunhan into his embrace. After this, he wrapped him up with a piece of cloth that he had prepared beforehand. With Tang Wutong's help, he wrapped him up tightly. How could he not have expected the White Tiger Duke to guess that he was going to come? However, he still came despite knowing that. This was because he clearly knew that he couldn't be fooled if little Yunhan wasn't here, given his spiritual detection. He would also be able to find little Yunhan's detailed location with his spiritual detection. This was why the White Tiger Duke didn't move little Yunhan away. Huo Yuhao also went along with it, which brought him here. He gently caressed the little baby's soft black hair. The gentle look on his face didn't change. "Little fellow, don't worry. I'll protect you until you return to your mother's side." After he finished speaking, he held Tang Wutong's hand, and the 2 of them walked out of the tent. Outside the tent, more than 10 figures were scattered in a semicircle. The White Tiger Duke and Heavenly Sun Doluo were in the center. The Heavenly Sun Doluo furrowed his brow, while the White Tiger Duke appeared as conflicted as before. Without a doubt, the Heavenly Sun Doluo was a little disdainful of Huo Yuhao in the beginning, but now, he was very impressed with Huo Yuhao, just like how the White Tiger Duke. They both knew that Huo Yuhao was going to be the main pillar of Shrek Academy, and a man of power in Shrek City in the future. If they could, they didn't want to offend someone like him, and get into his bad books. However, Huo Yuhao was crossing the line by trying to take Shu Yunhan away. The Heavenly Soul Doluo said, "Yuhao, we can take it as if nothing has happened if you leave the Crown Prince now. You can return to Shrek City." Huo Yuhao shook his head and answered, "Since I'm here, there's not backing out. We can't use a child as a bargaining chip in this war. We can't hurt him because of that. This is why I must take him away today. No matter what, I'm leaving with him." The Heavenly Sun Doluo's look turned sharper. "How dare you? Do you really think you can escape with so many people here?" Huo Yuhao's eyes were filled with resilience and a strong fighting intent. "If I don't give it a try, how will I know? Even if I fail, at least I tried. If you want the kid back, you'll need to stop me first." The Heavenly Sun Doluo's clothes moved even though there was no wind. "All right, what an arrogant little man. I really want to see what abilities you possess apart from your detection and concealment abilities. How dare you talk so big? As he spoke, the heavenly son Doluo took a step forward. His entire body instantly started to shine. The strong light that came from his body made him seem like a rising sun. He reached forward with his right hand and grabbed towards Huo Yuhao. A golden hand appeared in the air and approached Huo Yuhao. The surrounding air distorted tremendously, and the temperature rose quickly. However, the weird thing was that the temperature only rose around Huo Yuhao. Nothing changed elsewhere. With his control of his soul power, this rank 97 transcendent Doluo was indeed very powerful. Huo Yuhao took a step forward with his left foot. He placed his left palm in front of his chest and slowly pushed it forward. He wasn't quick, but the expressions of all the title Doluo changed when they saw him doing this. This was because all of them could sense that an ice mountain seemed to shift as Huo Yuhao pushed his palm forward. The immense aura that was released didn't seem to be weaker than that of the heavenly sun Doluo. Behind Huo Yuhao, a beam of jade-green light also started to shine. It was a ravishing beauty that was exuding a jade-green glow from her body. She was ice-cold as she stared at the heavenly sun Doluo. The heat in the air was completely suppressed after she appeared. Even the light from the heavenly sun Doluo's hand became much dimmer because of her. Kai. Huo Yuhao didn't move a single inch, but the hand that the heavenly sun Doluo formed was crushed in the air. A slightly red look appeared on Huo Yuhao's face, but it soon disappeared. The heavenly sun Doluo was the most astonished by what he saw. He had thought that he already regarded Huo Yuhao very highly. However, it was only after seeing that he realized he had underestimated Huo Yuhao. Even though he hadn't unleashed his full power yet, Huo Yuhao was still able to directly resist his attack. What did this mean? It meant that Huo Yuhao was strong enough to resist him. It was important to note that every single rank from a transcendent Doluo on represented vastly different levels of abilities. To be able to resist the heavenly sun Doluo's attack, Huo Yuhao had to at least possess the fighting strength of a rank 95 transcendent Doluo. None of the titled Doluo around were able to do that. The White Tiger Duke's eyes immediately shrank. He didn't expect Huo Yuhao's abilities to have grown to such a standard in just a short 2 years. This was astonishing. It was already very difficult to accept the fact that he was a titled Doluo who was barely 20, much less a transcendent Doluo who was barely 20. Of course, Huo Yuhao wasn't a transcendent Doluo. He was still a rank 89 soul Doluo, yet to make his breakthrough. However, it must not be forgotten that he had a soul core. In terms of direct fighting strength, he was not weaker than a titled Doluo. He even had Tang Wutong with him. When he combined his power with Tang Wutong, the fighting strength that they could generate was indeed at the tier of a transcendent Doluo. Out of the 3 graduation tests that Shrek Academy set for Huo Yuhao, one of them involved Huo Yuhao being able to defeat Dean Yang Xiaozhe. Yang Xiaozhe was a class 97 transcendent Doluo now. Huo Yuhao and Tang Wutong weren't confident of beating him, but they were confident of escaping from him. The heavenly sun Doluo was also rank 97, but his abilities were still some way off from Yang Xiaozhe. As a result, it was easy for Huo Yuhao and Tang Wutong to resist the heavenly sun Doluo's attack. Everything sounded very slow, but it actually happened in a flash. After his attack was dissipated, the heavenly soul Doluo's body instantly shone, and a blinding ball of sunlight also started to glow above his head. Countless streaks of blinding golden light turned into rays of light that shot toward Huo Yuhao. Lofty light rays. It was the heavenly soul Doluo's signature soul skill. Huo Yuhao remained unmoved. He slowly raised his right palm, which he had pushed forward earlier, and was now covered in diamond ice crystals. The heavenly sun Doluo's martial soul was fire type. Although it was of a very high quality, it was still some way off from ultimate fire. Huo Yuhao's ultimate ice martial soul was the jinx of fire type martial souls. When his opponent's martial soul wasn't as strong as his martial soul would have an even greater effect. He mimicked a lifting action, and the jade-green projection behind him disappeared. What replaced it was a fatso. This fatso was smiling from ear to ear, and his body exuded a strong icy blue glow. He chuckled at the heavenly sun Doluo. Following this, a huge ball of icy blue light shot violently into the air with Huo Yuhao at the center. This was the 8th soul skill of Huo Yuhao's Ice Jade Emperor Scorpion, Icy Meteor. Huo Yuhao clearly knew that it wasn't easy for him to break free from an encirclement by more than 10 titled Doluo. Among these titled Doluo, 5 of them were transcendent Doluo. Although the combination of Tang Wutong and his abilities were extraordinary, it wasn't possible for both of them to resist so many titled Doluo at once. If they couldn't directly resist them, they could only find a means of escaping. Once they managed to put some distance between themselves and these titled Doluo, Huo Yuhao could use his concealment abilities to flee. When that happened, there wouldn't be any problems even if there were many more titled Doluo around. This was why he immediately used his strongest soul skills. When he first unleashed his icy meteor, it only appeared as a huge icy ball that was a meter in diameter. Nothing seemed to be very special about it. However, it kept growing larger as it rose. Furthermore, an icy aura was becoming stronger and more violent inside this icy ball. When the heavenly sun Doluo's lights struck this icy meteor, they were immediately dissipated. There wasn't any effect at all. The heavenly sun Doluo's expression changed slightly. If he wanted to unleash a powerful soul skill, he would need time to accumulate his power. Huo Yuhao was able to use his icy meteor immediately, because he was already prepared, and also because he had the help of his spirits. The star anise mysterious ice grass had already appeared on his shoulder. This was why the heavenly sun Doluo didn't have time to unleash a powerful soul skill. He could only use his own immense strength to resist the icy meteor. Bang! The heavenly sun Doluo's palms struck the icy meteor. In his opinion, Huo Yuhao's abilities were already at the standard of a transcendent Doluo. At most, he would be flung away from trying to resist the attack. However, something unexpected happened. When his palms struck the icy meteor stopped for a moment. However, it didn't blow apart. It didn't unleash any extraordinary power either. The heavenly sun Doluo only felt as if there was a layer of glue on his palm, which glued it to the icy ball. Before he could even struggle, a weird yet terrifying power was violently unleashed from the icy meteor. It wasn't an attack, but a thrusting force. What was a meteor? It was an extremely rapid cluster of rock. This icy meteor wasn't an exception. Under Huo Yuhao's precise control, its explosive strength wasn't unleashed. However, its speed was demonstrated almost instantly. As a result, all the titled Doluo saw how terrifyingly quick the ice meteor was. It had really turned into a real meteor that flew into the distance. It didn't fly away on its own. The heavenly sun Doluo was still with it. This ice meteor was clearly taking the heavenly sun Doluo away with it. It was so quick that it appeared like a bolt of lightning. This meant that Huo Yuhao had forcefully dragged a rank 97 titled Doluo away in just a few clashes, though whether he could harm the heavenly soul Doluo was another thing. At least he was able to isolate the heavenly sun Doluo from the fight. Huo Yuhao's right hand didn't move down at all. The fatso behind his back changed to a ravishing yet mighty-looking lady, who seemed to dominate the entire world. She was dressed in a long, white dress. She opened her arms behind Huo Yuhao's back. Suddenly, an intense, deep blue light turned into a huge beam of light that rose into the sky. Even the heavenly sun Doluo was greatly disadvantaged in the previous clash of hands. The rest of the titled Doluo was slightly hesitant now. No one entertained the thought of striking first. This was because they were still unsure of how strong Huo Yuhao was. The beam of light shot into the sky. As it moved, countless snowflakes danced in the air, and the entire region was covered in an icy fog. It was the snowy dance of ultimate ice. It was just like how the heavenly sun Doluo focused all the heat on Huo Yuhao earlier. When Huo Yuhao unleashed his snowy dance of ultimate ice, only the titled Doluo were engulfed by this domain. Even the tents behind them were isolated. However, even so, all the titled Doluo felt as if they had lost track of Huo Yuhao instantly. As Huo Yuhao's cultivation increased, his snowy dance of ultimate ice naturally became much stronger. It became easy for him to isolate all use of spiritual detection. After all, that was his signature ability. Strong spiritual undulations were also released from his body. His eyes had turned completely golden. On his forehead, his vertical eye lit up. It was his eye of destiny. 2 rays of the light of destiny descended from the sky and struck both him and Tang Wutong. Luck was on their side now. Huo Yuhao held onto Tang Wutong's little hand, and she naturally went into his embrace. Suddenly, a huge golden vertical eye suddenly appeared. Right now, all the titled Doluo were jolted to their senses. They used their powers to attempt to break out of the domain. However, this was a powerful domain-type skill that was a combination of the Empress Chill and Huo Yuhao's domain of perpetual ice. Given how strong his combination with Tang Wutong was as well as the Snow Empress control of this skill, every titled Doluo had to resist the blizzard and frenzied winds within the domain. They had to protect themselves before they could try breaking out. It was also at this moment that Huo Yuhao and Tang Wutong's next soul skill was unleashed. The golden road amidst withering resplendence. Huo Yuhao's abilities were as great as a titled Doluo. Tang Wutong was already a titled Doluo. The fusion skills unleashed by both of them were extremely powerful. A golden road, which was 30 meters wide and infinitely long, appeared. 5 titled Doluo were caught within this golden road. They only felt as if they had instantly fallen into a furnace. Their sensing of soul skills instantly vanished. Their own martial souls also disintegrated immediately. Even their clothes immediately melted. Suddenly, they were all petrified and couldn't move at all. Among these 5 titled Doluo, one of them was even a transcendent Doluo. However, he was still stuck in the same situation. A purplish light projection suddenly rushed out at this moment. It was a huge, purplish dragon with butterfly wings. As it fluttered its wings, it was like a streak of flowing purple light. It was flying along the golden road. As it flew, countless small golden hammers scattered in the air. All the titled Doluo that charged over were immediately stunned. They could only watch as the purplish light projection shot past. They couldn't chase after it at all. Mantra amidst the void, spiritual tempest. The projection vanished amidst the golden light. The raging blizzard also slowly disappeared. What remained was only a bunch of titled Doluo who were in shock as they looked at each other. There were more than 10 titled Doluo. Were they so weak that they couldn't keep 2 people here? Of course not. They didn't think of linking up at all. In their eyes, Huo Yuhao and Tang Wutong were only juniors, no matter how talented they were. At most, they were only close to being titled Doluo. The Heavenly Sun Doluo should have been enough to deal with both of them. This video will end here.